Thank you, commissioners, for allowing me to come and give an update as to where we're at with construction. And I'm pleased to announce that we've made a lot of great progress since the last time I was able to give you an update. And we are really transitioning from the construction phase to the commissioning phase for all of these different components of the program. So to start with, I wanted to just sort of give you some update photos of where we're at with each one of the different areas. This is the Etowah River intake and pump station. The facility is complete. We were able to fire all the pumps up. This is actually Chairman Carmichael doing the inaugural pushing of the button, starting the flow that actually sent water for the first time to the Richland Creek Reservoir. The photo on the right, you can see Russell Kelly and Tim Pugh, both Paulding County employees, observing the flow coming into the reservoir for the first time. So the pump station's operational. We're able to transfer water from the Etowah River into the reservoir, and we are doing that on a daily basis. At the site itself, we've got everything complete. The fencing, security fencing's installed. Final grassing is taking place right now. We will have some additional trees that'll be planted once the fall comes along, because it's a better planting season for those, just for additional shelter of the site. So we are actively bringing water into the Richland Creek Reservoir. We hit a major milestone here. If you recall, we had a tentative approval to be able to pump up to a certain elevation until everything was complete, and then the state would allow us to continue the fill process. We've achieved that, so the state has confirmed everything is approved, and we're able to move forward with filling the reservoir all the way. So we're fully permitted. We're in the second fill zone, which means we can fill 2 feet per week. We're currently at elevation 852. We'll continue filling at 2 feet per week until we hit 880, and then we'll start filling it at 1 foot per week above that. So Parks Department is starting to coordinate with Department of Natural Resources on the timing for stocking fish of the reservoir. So that'll take place, as well as once we get closer to the 880 elevation, there's a series of artificial habitat that the Parks Department has developed. You can see the photos there in the bottom left. These are large corrugated tubes that will essentially be sunk to the bottom of the reservoir at different locations, and that provides great artificial habitat for the fish. And so that'll be placed coming up as well. Here you can see our reservoir intake structure, and the water's just now starting to get up to that elevation. You can see the little hatches on the side of that structure. Those are actually the large inlet gates. And we want to let the water level get up to that second gate elevation before we start bringing water into the plant, so that any debris, etc., doesn't come in with our first pumping into the plant. And that's at elevation 860. If you recall, we're at 852. So we're about 4 weeks away from being able to bring water into the plant for the first time. But this facility is ready to go. The pump station's ready to bring water in, and just waiting on the reservoir to come up to that 860, and then we'll go through the startup and testing of that pump station and bring it into service. Here's an aerial of the water treatment plant. We're essentially complete. Just waiting for water. We've got a couple of small punch list items that are being done, including service for fiber for CCTV and security. We're waiting on that to come up Highway 61 and get installed, and then those systems will come online. And then now that all the construction's done, one of the last things is sort of final paving through the plant site, and so that's taking place as well. But we're ready for commissioning, and now with Mr. Tatum on board, we're ready for the staff to come up to speed and really go through all the training and get all the systems commissioned and ready to operate. The finished water pipeline project is going well. All of the pipeline work is complete, and the pump station has been installed. And if you leave the Watson complex going out the back entrance by the driver services building, if you look off to the left, you'll be able to see our booster pump station. That was delivered, brickwork was installed, and the contractor's going through the process of installing the pumps on the interior of the building and getting them commissioned. The generator, standby generator, has been set, and the transformer has been set as well. So once we do start production at the plant, it'll send water down through the pipeline to this location, and it'll be pumped into the distribution system. So to go through some of our next steps, we're going to continue to fill the reservoir, targeted to get up to that 860 elevation in mid-September. Then we'll go through a startup and commissioning and training of the staff on the new water treatment plant. We've got some permits that have to get approved in terms of an operations permit, so those are being submitted. And then we'll initiate a 30-day operations test, and that's where the state wants us to run the treatment plant in full production, but instead of sending water to the distribution system, we basically just return it to the reservoir. So we go in a loop to sort of prove to the state that we can consistently produce water that meets permit. Once that's okayed and signed off on, then we'll be able to send water to the distribution system. In parallel with that, we'll continue to fill the reservoir up to 880 and set the fish habitat and do the stocking. And then we'll start up, once we're able to send water to the distribution system, we'll start up the finished water transmission main and booster pump station, and then we'll start ramping up production. So it's a very exciting time. We're very excited to have Danny and the rest of the staff coming on board. We've got a very good brand new F-150 truck. Got the keys, we're ready to hand it over and start production. So it's a great time.
I told her I needed her to come help me take some notes. My administrative assistant, Kaylee Hudgens, was just nominated for Employee of the Month. Kaylee came to work with the county in February of 2014, and I couldn't be more pleased with her. Kaylee keeps up with all of our calls that we get coming in for all the buildings. She dispatches them out to our technicians. She keeps up with them with the parts that they need ordered, getting them PO numbers. She's really been doing an awesome job helping the finance department. The finance department is actually the department that nominated her for Employee of the Month, and that really makes me feel good that another department has recognized one of my employees. I'm really proud of her, couldn't be happier. She does an awesome job for us, and she's just an invaluable employee for our department.
What's the address to your emergency?
Yes, I'm already outside the house. We've got 2 people inside the house who can't get out.
Station 3, Station 8, Battalion 1 for notification of a residential structure fire. 95 Hillside Drive, 95 Hillside Drive, Tabor Trace Subdivision, cross stream Mount Tabor Church Road.
Engine 3 respond.
We're here today at a home in Paulding County that was tragically lost due to a fire, but everyone made it out alive and is doing well thanks to Paulding County's fire department.
We would like to introduce you to the heroes of that day and get the story directly from them.
June the 11th, we had a fire here, and it was bad, hottest thing I ever saw in my life. And so they managed to get my great-granddaughter out of one window, and later on they got my wife out from the back bedroom, and I was glad for that to happen. And it was a big relief when that did happen. So I appreciate everything they had done. They're good.
Well, we encountered pretty much heavy fire right at the garage, and then on the walk around all sides. So pretty much it was It was about 50% involvement of the house. This was the only part that was clear, which happened to be the bedroom side. So, well, actually, we made our first attack. We stretched the line through here, tried to hit it at the origin of the fire in the kitchen, made an initial push. We got backed out due to conditions, and then that's when we went to Plan B, spoke with a homeowner, got an exact location, and then we happened to see the 15-year-old girl in that double window right there.
We noticed the 15-year-old girl was inside. Lieutenant and Firefighter Garrett, we were able to get her out without having to make entry into the window and kind of give her to the sheriff's deputies who were there to take her up to the top of the road for a medical.
We got done rescuing the younger girl. We looked down and someone placed a ladder at the next window down as the fire was moving. We were standing just ahead of it. Followed Caldwell through that window, which ended up being a bathroom, and we're able to make our way to where the second victim was located.
I closed the bedroom door while Firefighter Garrett's searching with our thermal imaging camera, try to find the victim. He found her. We kind of met up in the middle of the room. Realized we were probably going to need some help to get her out. She was bedridden. And luckily at that time, I think the squad and the next engine had got there and they came in to help us get her out of the window.
The crew that went in right before us had got inside, noticed that there was heavy fire conditions down the hallway, and isolated the room by closing the door, which cut off a lot of the fire and the heat. We still had zero visibility, but we were able to keep the fire at bay while we were able to effect the rescue.
Once we got the patient out, gave her to the receiving crew, like he said, they brought her down. Conditions were kind of getting worse in the room, fire above us. It hadn't got into the actual bedroom yet. At that point, as we started to kind of bail out one by one, head first. Once all four of us got out, us two and the receiving crew, we got out and we kind of went to provide medical to her. She'd been drug away from the house since it was still pretty hot. And then, fire was in that room pretty shortly after we had gotten out. So,
being the instant command, it was went very well. Guys did their jobs. They did what they were trained to do. We have trained this scenario several times. We couldn't ask for a better set of guys. Stressful, very stressful, but at the same time, it was. I knew that they could do their job, and I had their backs.
I want to say is how proud I am of our firefighters. A lot of things they tell you that they train on all these different scenarios, and they've trained for this scenario. But one of the things they can't train for is all the obstacles that they met here when they got on the scene. One of the things is they're at the road and they have to extend hand lines all the way down. Then they are encountering live wires arcing on the road. Then you encountered a child with autism, and then you've got an elderly female that's bedridden. They had to adapt and overcome, and that's what they did. And I'm just so proud of them. I'm proud of all public safety. I know we talk about team Paulding. We always practice that here at the fire department and the sheriff's office, where they did a fantastic job. The telecommunicators, call takers, they did a good job getting the information to us. I listened to the tapes. The family was very upset. So all in all, it was a team effort, and I'm just so proud to be the fire chief here at Paulding County and have employees like I have.
Hello, I'm with the U.S. Census, and I'm here to ask you...
I've already done it. The census is almost upon us, and since it's the 21st century, I did the census online. It only took me 5 minutes, and I did my part to make sure I'm counted. Shape your future.
Start here.
United States Census 2020.
Are you looking for a fast-paced, exciting career that's also rewarding? The Paulding County Sheriff's Office is actively hiring men and women to fill our ranks. Come make a difference where you live.
Just, being here, being back home was, it's always a good feeling to come back to something familiar. I have friends that work here, people I went to high school with, and they say it's a great environment to work in. And because I got my degree in investigations also, the possibility of upward mobility within the department is also a great thing.
It's still the family atmosphere. I don't ever have to worry about somebody not having my back. I've got all the support that I need, all of the training and equipment that I need. I don't ever have to worry about being ill-prepared for any kind of situation I'm going to face.
I wanted to make the change and come work closer to home, specifically in the community that I live in. I wanted to try and make a difference and serve my family, my friends. There are a few other places, as far as law enforcement is concerned, a few other agencies where you have so many vast opportunities with so little restriction on capping in your career. In the short time of 3 years, being able to be promoted to detective, being able to even be considered to be on a SWAT team is almost unheard of anywhere else. The opportunities are endless within our county. We have multiple divisions that can be worked within, and it's just as high as you want to go, as hard as you want to work.
Hello, I'm Paulding County Sheriff Gary Gully. If you want to make a difference where you live, the Paulding County Sheriff's Office is actively hiring motivated men and women to fill our ranks. For more information, you can visit our website or give us a call at 770-443-3010. Come make a difference in our community.
Good morning. It's good to see everyone here this morning. A big welcome. Thank you for participating in county government. I'd like to recognize elected officials, which would be Sheriff Gary Gullidge. Always good to have our sheriff around. At this time, I'll call the Paulding County Board of Commissioners work session to order on this 25th day of August 2020. If you could bring the list up, please. It'd be a good time also to turn off your cell phone. I think I need to do that. Thank you. We are very privileged to have Pastor Deborah Opie here with us today. She's the Director of Outreach and Inreach of Oasis Family Life Church. Deborah, it's always good to have you here, and thank you for leading us in a prayer and leading us in the pledge also. Stand if you're able.
Thank you. Let us pray. Father, first of all, we just want to say thank you, for this is the day that you have made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. So, Father, as we have these chosen men and women of God that you've called for such a time as this, we pray that you would give us wisdom, that you would open up our understanding and give us an ear to hear what your Spirit is saying. We pray that your kingdom come and your will be done for this county, in Paulding County, that we will work in unity and harmony to bring about your will in the earth. We thank you for these men and the women that you've called, and we pray in the name of Jesus that you will honor our hearts and that we will be pleasing and acceptable in your sight. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. May we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Pastor Opie. Starting us off the way we need to start off. Under minutes, the August 11th, 2020 work session minutes and the board meeting minutes are available for review. And in our announcements segment and also our Positively Paulding, we're going to see a video here of the Silver Comet Trail Signage Initiative. So I haven't seen it. I look forward to seeing this.
My name is Ken Swinson, and I'm a pre-construction engineer with Paulding County DOT. I coordinated the project for the Silver Comet Trail Signage Initiative. The Silver Comet Trail Signage Initiative was developed in an attempt to provide more consistent, accurate, informative, and aesthetically pleasing signage on the trail. Paulding County DOT was tasked to manage the entire process through a contract to get the signs designed, locations determined, develop a framework for the initiative along the entire Silver Comet Trail. The signage along the trail was designed for the trail users to be for both runners, walkers, and bikers, whereas the signage for motorists is signage along roads so that it can be easily seen by drivers to get to the trail. Paulding County hopes that this signage initiative will help all trail users not only navigate to the trails, but also help them use the trails while they're on them and understand all the different locations and access points to things along and off the trail. During this entire process, the Paulding County Board of Commissioners worked with the Parks and Recreation Department in coordination with the cities of Dallas and Hiram, along with the Paulding County DOT to implement this entire project. So after the long process of planning, designing, permitting, and implementation, the signage installation was finally completed in June of 2020.
That's awesome. Good job, public information team. And now Baker Street won't get lost on the trail anymore. We are glad to have invited guest Michael Hughes, who's Economic Development Director in Paulding County. Still fairly new, so maybe we'll just keep you new forever and ever, Michael. But thanks for coming forward and giving us this quarterly report about what's going on with economic development in our beautiful Paulding County.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners, and County Administrator. Go.
quick PowerPoint here to share with you. Okay. And again, interest of full disclosure, that's about a 15-year-old picture, so prior to gray hair, so anyway. It's my pleasure to have an opportunity to address you this morning and share with you just a little bit of information about economic development, what's been happening since I came on board, which was in February of this year, and about 30 days later, COVID hit. I don't think there's a connection, but just wanted to mention that. In terms of just an overview of the EDO, we've identified 7 priorities for the organization. I won't go through all of these, but I wanted just to highlight, obviously, the organization's primary goal is to promote and enhance the economic vitality of Paulding County, help recruit new businesses, promote tourism, support entrepreneurs, and foster startup economic activity, or foster startup activity, business activity for the county. I think it's important to note some of the things that we're working on with respect to those 7 priorities. And let me just step back and say that those 7 priorities are really going to drive the strategic economic development plan that we're currently working on. One of the things we'll be working on is putting together a comprehensive database of available property for the entire county, and we're going to look at doing an outside company, CoStar, that provides a subscription service for these types of activities, and so we're exploring that right now. The other thing we're looking at is developing a website. We're going to be talking to probably 3 to 5 vendors that put together websites. Websites are extremely important for a couple of reasons. One, it's usually the first introduction that to a local community that a business may have, and it's important that the information there is useful and accurate and updated on a consistent basis, because they rely on that information. And if it's not updated on a regular basis and they find that out, that can lead to a bad experience. So we're looking at doing that. But it's also an opportunity for us to showcase the assets of the community as well. So we'll be looking to use that tool to showcase some of the positive things that are going on here in Paulding County. A couple of other things that I think are effective and things that I think I bring to the table in terms of just maintaining effective relationships. You'll hear me talk about this. Economic development is a team sport, so working with state economic development offices, the local chamber of commerce, our utilities, companies like Greystone, Georgia Power, and then real estate professionals and site selection consultants are also extremely important to work with on a consistent basis. Excited to announce too that we have a new staff hire for the EDO that will be starting next Monday, August 31st. And then also earlier this year we entered into a memorandum of agreement with the Board of Commissioners with respect to some additional funding support, but also a scope of work in terms of the types of services that the EDO will be providing the board going forward. So excited about that. Just mention too that I also have a role with the IBA, being the new executive director of that. The basic premise for that is to encourage and promote the expansion and development of our industrial and commercial facilities in the county, with the focus on looking at the tax digest and beginning to shift the pendulum, if you will, from 85-15, if you will, more towards a sustainable factor, so that we can provide for the good quality services that this board and public are used to going forward. So we'll be working to do that. I want to mention too that the IBA also has been working to look at some of the property that it owns, the Dallas Industrial Park. There are two parcels that remain there for sale. We're hopefully finalizing the water and sewer line testing for some of the right-of-way in there to finalize a transaction with Setco Tire. And then we're also exploring some conceptual site plans for the remaining parcels that are in that industrial park as well. One would allow about a 60,000 square foot building to be built on there, and then the other would allow an initial 50,000 square foot building, and then another 25,000 that could be added on to that. So we're excited about that. We'll be marketing that to a couple of business perspectives that are considering both those properties. And then one other property we're looking at is B18 property, which is the property out on Bill Caruth between Nebo and Laird Road. We are looking at putting together a request for proposals that we would circulate to some industrial developers, well-known industrial developers who have some interest in serving as a master developer for that property. That's about 127 acres of property out there. In terms of just looking at, one of the things I want to move forward on is putting together, I alluded to it just a few moments ago, our economic development strategic considerations. And really I just sort of see 5 strategic goals, if you will. One is a business climate and vision, and that's really just having a proactive county and city governments that really have a unified vision. I think we're taking some steps in that direction with the Economic Development Summit meetings that we've had. We had the first one in June and just had another one this August, where we're literally all trying to get on the same page from an economic development standpoint in terms of incentives that are offered and the process for authoring or providing those incentives, and then getting just a better understanding of how each of the partners want to play a role in our economic development efforts going forward. So we've met with both the cities. School board has been participating in these meetings as well. So we're excited about that initiative through the chairman's leadership, along with Dan Nolan, who's our IBA chairman as well. In terms of positioning the county for economic development, we want to be sure that we've got adequate public infrastructure in the appropriate places around the county where development can be accommodated logically. And we also want to look at implementing a business retention program that will help us work with businesses that are already here who've made substantial investment and be sure that they're able to continue to be successful in our community. I think it's also important to explore some partnerships with other nearby jurisdictions, perhaps Douglas County, perhaps Bartow, as well as Cobb, to see if there's some opportunities to partner with them from an economic development standpoint. In terms of developing product, and by product I mean building and land that's available, I think we also need to look at, obviously, business parks. We have Dallas Industrial Park, employment districts, maybe a medical district that would somehow complement what's happening with Wellstar in the property in and around that area. And then also looking at developing a tournament sports complexes where we can kind of from a tourism perspective look at competing for some of these youth tournaments. I, as 3 children, but one of them that played soccer, was dragged all over the Southeast playing different tournaments, and I know parents are very passionate about getting their kids to their sports programs, whether it's football, baseball, soccer in my case. And there's some opportunities there, and so we're looking to partner there, and that what I consider sort of low-hanging fruit. In terms of just redevelopment, we want to work with our cities here, Hiram as well as Dallas, to explore some redevelopment opportunities within their downtown areas, and in particular looking at some economic development tools like tax allocation districts, maybe a CID, maybe a business improvement district would be something that could be utilized there to help jumpstart some redevelopment activity in those areas and look at some public-private partnerships. And then I'll just say these are sort of the 5 pillars here. What staff will do now is actually develop some specific objectives for each of those items, and then actually put together a matrix that will show the responsible party and then the timeline for completing each of those objectives going forward. A couple other things we've been working on is just looking at targeted industries. And the 4 or 5 at the top there, aerospace and aviation, automotive supply, machinery, equipment, medical and health, and then film and television. It's important to really identify your targeted industries in your community for a few reasons. One, it's economic diversification. And the reason that's important is because over-reliance on one particular industry can help sort of smooth out some of the downturns. And there will be downturns, unfortunately. I've seen them in my career. But the more diverse you are in your business mix, it's a little easier to ride out those downturns. So that's why economic diversification is important. Usually targeted industries also pay higher wages. They also retain your younger professionals. And if something that I've heard in the 6 months I've been here roughly is a way to retain our younger folks in the community. And so we think that's one way to do that. It enhances your economic growth. It meets a variety of skill sets, and then also you can leverage your local assets and infrastructure. The other thing I'll just mention too, that because of Paulding County's size and close proximity to, it's important to understand again the economic targeting that's going on in some of our nearby jurisdictions, whether it's Cobb, Bartow, Douglas. There may be some opportunities for us to sort of piggyback on some of the things that are that they're pursuing from an economic development standpoint. And because of close proximity, we might be able to attract a supplier or something that complements one of their targets as well. Also been working on putting together some economic development tools. And the first 5 there are programs that actually I've drafted already, and at some point will be presented to the board for your consideration. But again, I talked earlier about entrepreneurs and innovators. It's important, this type of incentive program would be for high-skilled fields that assist these companies in growing and creating jobs and staying in the county. Then we have small business and new startups. There's an actual loan fund, or not loan fund, a grant fund that we're looking at starting for those types of businesses. And then business retention, I mentioned that earlier. It's important to, everybody wants to attract the next Amazon, Home Depot, GE Energy, and that's all great. But I think if you're losing 3 or 4 or 5 businesses every year, then it kind of makes bringing in the new ones not as meaningful, I don't think. So it's important that we work with our existing businesses that are here, that have invested, that have created jobs, to make sure they're successful. Targeted industry, we've identified through NACS code some of the targeted industries that we think would be a good fit in here in the community as well. And then special economic impact, those are the large projects with multi-million-dollar capital investment, hundreds of jobs. We have an opportunity to attract those. We certainly want to be in a position to do that. Enterprise zones and facade programs. Enterprise zones are areas that are typically designated for redevelopment or development activity based on state standards. And we can look at establishing one of those here in Paulding. We just have to select the appropriate area and do the analysis to see if we can. The facade improvement program is also something we did when I was in Cobb as well. We set aside some grant funds to help businesses to improve their overall appearance and raise property values in certain areas. So that's something we'd like to take a look at going further. Oops. In the Business Concierge, it's another tool that we utilized. It's important to note here that a lot of individuals think about going into business, but sometimes don't know all the steps that are necessary. So this will be sort of a one-on-one opportunity to consult with a professional who can kind of walk them through that permitting process, explain any local incentives that are available with them, and just offer any permitting assistance going forward. Business walks. This is a best practices for business outreach. It's important, it's been my experience that it's important to keep a pulse on what's happening in the business community, and this is a great way to do that in terms of sitting down with these individuals, businesses who are currently operating in the community, get a better feel for how they're operating, what their perspectives are on doing business in the community, and provide some feedback in terms of how things might improve, whether they're trying to get a business license, building permit, or if there are grant funds that could be useful to help them jumpstart their business or other resources. So we find this is a very valuable tool. And the other thing is, I should mention too, is a way to work together with our partners here in Paulding as well, where there's the chamber, the cities, the utility companies can all participate in this, because we usually have a team of 4 or 5 people that will go out and meet with individuals in different areas of the county. Even a post commissioner could sit down with, be part of that group that interviews these businesses as well. And there they can hear firsthand what are some of the challenges are, what some of the good things are going on from that perspective. And a couple other things just real quick, and I'll finish up. Been working closely with community development and then also an outside consultant. We've been looking at updating the county zoning ordinance, and there are 5 additional zoning categories that we're currently looking at: e-commerce, e-commerce business park, business to consumer logistics, advanced manufacturing, and then also Paulding Trail, the overlay district. Recognizing that many of us use a phone or some other mobile device to order food, to order goods, Amazon, what have you, we want to be sure that we have positioned the county to, because those are retail trends that are going to continue for the next 15, 20 years, and we're trying to position the county to capture some of the business opportunities, recruitment opportunities that may exist, recognizing these changes in retail behavior. So that's what we're looking at in terms of that. The Paulding Trail Overlay District is something where we recognize that the Silver Comet Trail is a valued recreational asset, and we want to explore some development opportunities that complement the trail. Also looking at development standards or development review process to make sure we're efficient and effective in those processes. And then lastly, just looking at the county's future land use map in terms of how it might be tweaked to encourage more commercial development by designating areas that are appropriate for commercial activity throughout the county. Oops. Yeah. And again, just talking about our team concept, had an opportunity to serve as a keynote speaker a couple of weeks ago at the local Chamber of Commerce, Paulding's Chamber of Commerce breakfast or luncheon, and enjoyed that. Be working with Georgia Power. They have site selection consultants, real estate professionals that are all key to helping us do our job. And again, this team concept is something that you'll hear me hammer on as I continue to make my rounds here. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Outstanding information there. Of course, I talk with you regularly, but what I think might be interesting to listeners in the room or on TV, our infrastructure needs. Our board, the sitting board, has addressed some of the needs around the county, but I would appreciate your comment on how important that is to accomplishing the goals that we do have.
I think obviously having water, sewer, and transportation infrastructure are key elements of any economic development strategy going forward. So to the extent we can begin to develop plans and then execute those plans and making sure we've got infrastructure in those areas that we've determined are suitable for development, that's important. I think the private sector, they tend to follow those capital investments in public infrastructure, and they feel comfortable and reasonably assured that public infrastructure will be there to support their development. So it's extremely important that we move forward on that from a planning perspective and certainly from a funding perspective as well.
Well, I'll just ask all the questions. You arrived in Paulding County and you found a film studio.
Yes.
And it's big in Georgia, I think leading in the nation now.
It is.
Do you see connectivity with Georgia economic development, films and Paulding County films?
I do. Certainly having productions in and around the county is an opportunity to have a lot of these production folks who are utilizing your local restaurants and other businesses that are within the community. I think that's a benefit. Some of them may need to stay in the community overnight, depending on how long the production is, and so there's some opportunities there to, again, restaurants, staying in hotels, and so forth. The other benefit, I think, is workforce, and making sure the technical trades are in place that support set building, any other post-production type activity as well. So I think there's definitely some opportunities there to support that. It'd be a good complement.
Of course, those where you shared with us about the Dallas, that industrial park up there, that's exciting. The 127 acres that on the south end, has there been any interest at all?
Yes, there's a industrial developer that we recently met with that has some interest in acquiring that property, shall we say.
How about the connection with Lake Point? And you mentioned tournaments.
Yes.
Paulding County families have always been big into sports. And I know we do overflow from Lake Point now, maybe to some of the beginning tournament games.
Yeah, and I think there's some opportunities there. I think there's also some opportunities to partner with the Sports Council in Cobb County. They actually have a sports council that they've assembled and routinely go after youth sports tournaments, not just youth sports tournaments, but sports tournaments in general. And there may be some opportunities to sit down with them to see if we could join that sports council initially, and then as they're pursuing their various sports tournaments, offer up fields that are available for baseball, lacrosse, soccer, or what have you. And then as things get rolling, there might be an opportunity for Paulding to form its own sports council as well, and go after some of those opportunities on their own.
Well, thank you so much for coming in today, Michael,
Thank
and
you.
for a great presentation. We're appreciative.
Thank you, sir.
Under bid awards, award the grading portion of the east-west road widening project to the lowest responsible bidder, Bartow Paving, in the amount of $56,313.80. We'll have a tag team here with Ms. Pollard and Mr. Jones.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to give my time to Mr. Jones. This is a bid that's under $100,000, and DOT has primarily gone through this entire process themselves, so I'm going to give the time to him.
Okay.
I guess I'm going to wrestle the whole match then. All right. This agenda item is for the basically satisfying one of the Costco public infrastructure improvement projects. On the October 22nd, 2019, the board entered into an agreement with Costco Wholesale to perform public infrastructure work projects to facilitate the infrastructure around the Costco Wholesale site. This particular project is for the addition of a third lane widening from a 2-lane road to a 3-lane between Old Griffin and the Costco store on the back side of the Dallas Dodge and Gerber Collision and Glass buildings, the north side. This is a grading only contract. The third lane work area is higher up than the existing roadway, so it's a cut type of section. So what we're trying to do is basically do the work right now, get it down to final grade, and so we can move the utilities. We got some power, water in those areas, so we're doing this so we can facilitate the movement on this project. It'll help get it done quicker. We solicited bids from 4 contractors for this grading portion of the project. We received 2 no-bid notifications and 2 bids. The low bidder was Bartow Paving in the amount of $56,313.80. And we recommend award of this project to Bartow County, who was the lowest responsive bidder. Funding for this project will be provided from general funds, which are allocated towards the Costco public infrastructure improvements. It's located in Post 1, and we plan on advertising additional portions of this project, such as the asphalt curb striping, to get the road finalized and ready for the Costco opening in March. It'll be advertised, I believe, by the end of the week, those other portions. Like I said, I can answer any questions if y'all have any.
I drove by there yesterday afternoon. That place is going up quick. They've got walls up.
Yes, ma'am. I believe our portion of the projects are supposed to be completed by February 1st, and the last I'd heard, they were still looking for a March 2021 opening.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
Reports from committees and departments. Very pleased always to have Mr. Eric Johnson with Comprehensive Program Services with us, and the jail has definitely been in use for a while, so it'd be interesting to hear some of your comments about the needed items now.
Good morning, Chairman, fellow commissioners. I've got a quick presentation if I can find it here. I'm a little IT challenged. And I can't see. Slideshow. All right, there we go. Good morning. I'm here to bring a quick update to the Board of Commissioners. Here in the audience, as you mentioned before, Sheriff Gullidge and Chief Hunton. There you see it right there. I'm going to show you a couple pictures and then kind of get into change order 8 that we're going to be presenting, and then the overall budget, kind of where we are. So as always, pauldingjail.com. Anybody needs some information, we put it on there for anybody to review. So a couple of progress photos. So the LEC, Law Enforcement Center portion, we had a substantial completion in May 1st of this year, and the Sheriff's Office moved in at that time. Big effort to move from where they were to here. Went pretty seamless. So here's some progress photos of all the different back office spaces in the LEC. You have a full medical mental health facility here. As you all know, the state is doing a very average job at best of dealing with a lot of the mental health issues. You are well equipped to deal with Paulding County's population. Did an excellent job on that with the Sheriff's Office. So, housing day room, as you see, doesn't look like a Red Roof Inn, but it's nice. It's accommodating, very secure, operationally very efficient. And works real well. Command center, that's central control. As you see right through that window too, that's the command staff's parking lot, secure parking lot too, which if you look out the windows, that's the gate that you see right in the middle of the facility. So, change order 8, these are, as you can see the list of items there, these are some cleanup items. We've got another change order 9 that's coming. These are all issues that came up through closing out the job, and quite honestly, some of these have been around for quite some time. A lot of them we did not agree with. We have a running list. I would tell you we're rejecting more than we are approving, and we've got a very comprehensive list again if anybody would like to see it. These are some that we do feel are warranted, and the total of that is $69,825. So we'll be looking, if you have any questions on any of those, we can I can answer them now or after the presentation. So I know this is the first time you've probably seen it, but they're all pretty much dealing with the operations of issues. And after we moved in, some other items that we thought should have been on the drawings that we needed for operations, most of these. So FF&E, as you can see, we've spent the whole budget, and that's been a running total. There is a lot of stuff that was required on this project. We've come before and thought we could handle all the needs, and we reduced it a couple times. Well, it turns out we really needed to spend the whole $3 million that we had originally budgeted way on early in the job, back from 2014 to 2015. So, and those are some of the items, the furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So where we are today, as you see right there, we are projecting, and you see change order number 9 there too. We're not here for that one. We're still getting some backup and some other correspondence associated with that. But we do have change order 8 in there. And, we're projecting completion costs $63,292,939. I would add there is probably some more changes after 9 that we're cleaning up too. Not a whole lot, but we'll bring those in for approval as well. So, as you can see, we're projecting the overall project to be at $72,530,805.48. You'll see down below the construction contingency. Again, we've mentioned this before. That is a contingency inside the contractor's GMP. It's explicitly used for filling holes and gaps that they weren't able to price or be able to get a bid on, in their opinion, which they review with us. Contractually, they're able to do it, but we absolutely grade every penny that they spend out of that. And as you see, that's the same number that we were carrying the last meeting, because we asked for a couple weeks for the updated construction contingency log, and we just got it maybe yesterday, and I'll just say I don't agree with most of it, so I just thought I'd put that number up there because I don't have an update on that number yet. That is flowing, but there is, in our opinion, a significant amount of money still left in the construction contingency. So, and when we've resolved that, I'll be in front of you to let you know how we resolved it. So, it can get a little contentious, so to speak. Warranty, we're on site with the Sheriff's Office. They do an excellent job in relaying what issues they have, and we try to jump on it as quickly as possible. So we're working, the Turner Construction and Nelson are both stepping up and getting these warranty items. Probably not as quickly as we'd like to get them resolved, but they are getting resolved. We're staying on it. And Jalen Johnson with Comprehensive Program Services, he's here too. And he's running the spreadsheets and everything else and working straight with the Sheriff's Office with me as well. So, and again, we're continuing to have site walks and discussions as needed. So all in all, it's going well. So with that, I'll be happy to open up for any questions.
Questions? This board is smart. We don't have to ask a lot of questions.
That's good, because I don't have a lot of answers today. I'm just kidding.
So, wouldn't necessarily be in your category, but
Yes,
the voters approved 77 million, so you just put up a 72.4 million.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still a little bit under 5 million under what?
Yes, sir.
Well, I would like to thank some of our staff who have worked with you and been to regular meetings, to be Sheriff Gullidge and Colonel Hunton, and of course Scott Green, who have stuck with the overruns there and evaluated them. So I don't know what the total was, including the ones that we did not approve, that you did not approve, but I've been to a couple of those meetings myself, and I know y'all go through it like with a fine-tooth comb, and I appreciate that from CPS and also our staff. Thank you.
As a point to that, I know on our list here, just since we've kind of closing out the job, we've got over $196,000 worth of rejected change order requests. Okay? And that's just as we've tried to close this thing out. There's a number of them, obviously, before that. So at CPS, we have a philosophy that no period is a complete sentence. So has a lot of power in these meetings. So that's how we begin negotiations typically. So
other comments?
I just want to thank you for your help in keeping us under budget.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Now, was one of those rejections the latte machine that Gary requested?
No, sir. I actually bought that myself for him. Just kidding.
Well, thank you, Eric, for being here and for a good report.
Hey, thank you.
We have two people who have signed up to speak on agenda items, and number one is Mr. Joel Larkin, who will speak on the R55 amendments. So,
Good morning. My name's Joel Larkin. I'm with the law firm Sams, Larkin, Huff, and Marietta. I'm reticent to speak today after all the wonderful speakers last night at the Republican convention, and then we've had great speakers this morning, but I'll try. First of all, I want to thank all of you for your efforts on revising the R55 category, and especially those of you who have come out to Winsong's projects and taken a look at them. We've tried to get you to get a sense of the communities that Winsong tries to build, and I think your latest revisions reflect that you all are getting a sense of that, and we appreciate the efforts. There are still a number of concerns that we have, and I sent an email to all of you, but the first concern is the inclusion of an undisturbed 50-foot buffer around the perimeter of the projects. As you all know, if you've looked at Winsong's projects, they put a lot of pride and effort into landscaping and buffering their projects. It's the undisturbed element of it that's particularly troubling to us. Very few pieces of property that we get for development have a real meaningful buffer around them. Typically in Paulding County, what you have is uneven grades and a bunch of scrub pine trees. And under your ordinance, this would require that that be left in place, and we'd have uneven grades and scrub pine trees in a 50-foot band around the projects. What we'd like to see instead is that the ordinance allow a disturbable buffer so we can get in and grade them pursuant to plans that are submitted to your professional staff, and then landscape them in a manner that we think would be aesthetically pleasing and will help the development. So that's one of our concerns. The second concern is one that we've had throughout. We appreciate the fact that you all are concerned about the density and the manner that these projects are developed, and we don't have any problem with the reduction that you have from 5 to 4 units per acre. But we think the flexibility that the developer has on lot sizes and shapes and configuration is important. I think you noted that Cobb County doesn't have particular side setbacks and numerical requirements. They give maximum flexibility. Your ordinance doesn't do that now, but one of the requirements in particular that concerns us is the 5-foot current side setback is being increased to 8. And if you came out to our projects, you'll see that over a period of 30-plus years, Winsong has developed a product that is courtyard-based, and it's very specific to market demands and what our customers want. And we would ask that you consider putting the 5-foot setback back in so that we can continue to develop a product that's been very successful. This doesn't increase the yield we get out of the property. We like to put that extra space where our customers want it, which is in open space and walking trails and community type space, rather than just filling space between the houses. And then the third item is the community center requirement, and we applaud the requirement that there be a community center. Our concern is the minimum requirement that you put in here of 2,000 square feet. That works great for all the projects that we've done and are currently doing in Paulding County, but it neglects consideration of the fact that somebody might do a small project. They might do a 5-acre project or a 6 or 8-acre project. And in that event, I think the 2,000 square foot requirement is probably excessive. So I think if you all would consider revising that to consider smaller projects. I think we've got another speaker on behalf of Winsong here, and I appreciate all of y'all's effort, and I encourage you to give me a call if you have questions or would like to talk about any of it before you vote on it. Thank you.
thank you, sir. We also have Mr. Sean Randall to speak on the same topic, R55 amendments.
For the record, my name is Sean Randall, Winsong Properties, 120 Colony Center Drive, Woodstock, Georgia. And we're very proud to be here and talking to you all again about this ordinance, which is very dear to our hearts. Obviously, all we do is active adult at Winsong Properties. The company has been in business for 17, 18 years. We really feel like we understand our market and our buyer. And Joel touched on both things, and I won't try to beat them to death, but the 50-foot undisturbed buffer is just what it'll end up being is additional backyard for these homes in most instances, because, they will back up to the county roads or whatever. And so all of a sudden, if we've got a 25-foot backyard, then another 50, we have 75 feet of backyard from the rear of the house. And on a busy road, like say a Macklin Road, maybe some of that makes sense, as we have at Eccles Farm. But for the most part, we really need to be able to grade into that buffer and do a landscape plan. Again, I would invite anyone who's not been to Eccles Farm to go see and look what we do with the perimeter of our property. I think we landscape like nobody else in the county landscapes, frankly. So that's very important to us. And why you say, well, people want their rear yards. Why, of course, that's our homes, and Joel touched on it. Our best-selling homes are what we call courtyard homes, where all the outdoor living is in the center of the house, and we wrap all the living spaces around that. So the dining area, the family room, the kitchen, and oftentimes a home office all wrap around this courtyard, which is in the middle of the house, not in the rear. So fundamentally, a lot of times our buyers, most of our houses don't even have an exit door in the back of the house. You exit out onto the courtyard and then walk around to the back of your house. So additional rear yard for our house plans, generally not that important. We do have some what I call rear living homes where the patio is in the back, but again, we think 25, 30 feet, that's really all our buyer wants. And so you say, well, why is this courtyard concept so special? And that forms into the side yard setback. Right now, we have a 5-foot, side yard setback, so that's 10 feet between the structures, but you're actually measuring from the overhang, which can be 6 to 9 to 12 inches. So really, if you're at 12 inches, it's not 10 feet between the structures, you're 12 feet between the walls. And you say, well, if you go to 8 feet, now all of a sudden you're 18 feet between the walls, and you say, well, your buyer ought to like that. No, our buyer really wants a small, intimate space on that side yard, and we use the adjacent blank side of the next lot, and they have an access easement onto that lot, is kind of the formation of their courtyard. So again, we would sincerely ask to reconsider the 5-foot and then the undisturbed buffer. And I can answer any questions.
I just have a comment. I mean, some of the products that I've seen in this R55, not your products,
Yes,
but
sir.
some of them don't even have overhangs. So
Don't even have what, I'm sorry?
overhang.
Yes.
So
Yes.
when we're looking at this R55, we're having to think about everyone except for not just, Windsong.
We understand.
So,
Yes, sir.
so some of the stuff that we're looking at is not to say, as to pick on Windsong, it's just to protect, because there's some developments that I've seen in the county right now that doesn't do the quality that you say y'all do. So it ain't as much as we're trying to come down on Windsong, it's just what's happening in the other developments.
Well,
So I'm just, I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, and I understand that and really appreciate that. We want quality in Paulding County. These homes at Eccles Farm are, easily in the 450s, 500,000 for a 2,000 square foot house. I mean, do the math at that's $250 a foot. I don't know of anybody selling in the county, residential at those kind of values. Our customers buy our product and pay dearly for our product because we give them what they want. But I think, Brian, we could probably, or the commission could probably address those concerns by really scrutinizing the plans when they're presented to this commission. Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean. Under consent agenda items, consideration of the 2 consent agenda items. Item number 3 is authorize the chairman to sign a quitclaim deed to the owners of 297 Cobblestone Trail for a 5-foot strip of land to give them a 9.38-foot side setback. And number 4 is to declare items listed on surplus and approve their disposal through auction or trade. All 6 of these items are from the sheriff's office, and the description of these items are available on the back table back there. So I'm told I do not have to read all these long serial numbers. Would any of the post commissioners or any of us like to place either of these 2 items on regular business? Okay, thank you. Under old business, item number 5 is discuss action to adopt ordinance 20-09 and ordinance amending zoning ordinance Article 8, Section 5, regarding the R55 active adult residential district. It was tabled from the July 28, 2020 Board of Commissioners meeting, and Ms. Lippman, the Community Development Director, is here to report.
Thank you all. Planning Commission did make a recommendation to approve a text amendment at their meeting on July 25th. The Board of Commissioners tabled it to do some additional work, and I just want to give you a summary of the changes that have been made since July. We changed the vested date to hopefully today, when something will be approved. In the single-family detached type of use, we changed the maximum density from 5 units per acre to 4. We increased the minimum lot size from 4,800 square feet to 6,000 square feet. Increased the front setback from 8 feet to 10, and the side setback from 5 to 8 feet. We also, in doing some work on another zoning district, we thought it would be beneficial to require amenities in R55, and as Mr. Larkin mentioned, we did require a community center to be no less than 2,000 square feet, and walking trails, sidewalks, etc. And optional amenities are athletic courts, lakes, and swimming pools. Presently, we have reverted back to the 2-car garage requirement. We have also required submission of house plans with elevations to be included with zoning applications, and those would then become part of the stipulations, and the house plans would have to substantially meet those that were submitted with the rezoning. We also included a requirement for 5-foot sidewalks on both sides of streets for single-family detached and attached. And I kind of have a question I realized this morning. You can go over these zoning districts every time and you find a period that's out of place or something, and I noticed that we did not change that for retirement communities. So if you would like to see sidewalks on both sides of retirement communities as well as single-family detached and attached, I'd be happy to make that change, or any other changes that you might like to see to R55.
Questions for Ann, comments, discussion?
So the only question, say, is as far as the sidewalk, I mean, say as Windsong in y'all's developments, is sidewalks usually on both sides of the road, or is that a plus or minuses in that community? I mean,
Typically in our newer communities, we have been doing them on both sides.
is that something that is required, say, in other areas?
It really depends upon the jurisdiction, and sometimes even in the district. You know, for instance, in Cobb County, some commissioners want sidewalks both sides, some just say on one side. It really depends upon the district. At least that's been my experience.
And I got another question for you, if you don't mind. So as far as the attached, the width, I think we have, let me find it. We proposed a width of 28 feet. I mean, what's your thoughts of that width? Because I don't really know enough about that product, so it was just a...
Typically, the active adult that I'm familiar with, the whole deal really rests on having the owner suite on the main level. And to get that box fundamentally, you're usually talking, you need at least 30 to 32 feet of width. Some configurations, I think 28 is okay, but we, Windsong Properties, probably wouldn't be opposed to widening that a little bit. Because again, all our focus for our active adult is getting as much of the living space on the first floor to where almost the second floor, if you build it, is just for when the grandkids come. Or, maybe that's the arts and crafts room upstairs or something like that. But the 28 feet, you can do it, but again, we probably wouldn't be opposed to a 30-foot or 32-foot if you wanted to change that lot width. Again, active adult only. As you well know, townhomes, we build them as small as 22 feet wide with a 2-car front entry garage. But typically, you have 22s, 24s, and then 26s in traditional, what I'll call townhome developments that are probably being presented to the county today. Does that answer your question?
It does, and I appreciate it. And if you got a few minutes after the meeting, I wouldn't mind spending a few minutes with you.
Absolutely. Be glad to do that.
I've got a comment on the undisturbed buffer. Not necessarily for you, Sean, but for Ian and for the board here. Mr. Larkin mentioned that, a lot of times it's just scrub pines or, it's a steep grade or something that you end up dealing with. Since that's going to vary with the piece of property, and we reassess things at the plan review, would it be possible to assess whether it's really scrubby pines, it's not going to be that beautiful, or maybe it's not just pines, maybe it's some other...
That's certainly possible. That's why when we wrote this, we included if there is not adequate undisturbed buffers on the existing property, a landscape plan would be required. So I was kind of giving me and my staff extra work to when we get a rezoning application to go observe what the situation is, but I'm fine if you'd like to change undisturbed to allow for disturbed, but either way, but that is why we did put, if there is not adequate undisturbed buffers on the existing property, a landscape plan will be required. So we kind of saw that we know that there's a lot of scrubby pines and that there might not be adequate buffer there, so we sort of provided for that, but if you'd like to change that to disturbed buffer, I'm fine with that. You just tell me what you would like. To change, to allow for a disturbed buffer? Or the way we have
if they turn in a
landscape plan?
Landscape plan.
Okay.
Get approved. As long as we have the staff to handle it.
We would. So, let me just be clear, do you want to change it to allow for a disturbed buffer, or leave it the way it is, and just when we get our 55 requests, staff check on what the buffer, what the existing land looks like?
See what's actually out there is what I'm looking for.
Okay.
I think that makes sense.
Okay, so it's leaving it the way it is, and staff looking at it when we get cases.
And Windsong does a great job at landscaping, and I was out there not too long ago. They didn't just plant little 6-inch diameter trees, they're sizable trees. Definitely took a 18-wheeler or flatbed or something to get them in there.
Yeah, but just remember, this is not called R Windsong, it's called R55.
Right.
So we got to think about everybody.
Right, absolutely. The other thing that I don't really understand, and although we've had a lot of discussion and have done a board survey to see where everybody stands, so it's very important for us to get this as right as we can get it, but I don't see the huge value of the 5-foot versus the 8-foot. Tabitha, in the math, it's just a 3-foot difference, isn't it?
6.
Oh.
Between houses.
Between houses.
Well, drainage can be an issue between, when you talk about a 10-foot between the houses, Bobcat is 6 foot, over 6 foot, 6.5 foot wide, 7 foot wide, so there's issues, I mean, I just feel like, even like, so those houses that burnt down there in Greystone, I mean, those were, how far apart was R4 zoning? Setbacks, those at least 15 foot apart, so I mean, we had, 4 or 5 houses burned from a domestic dispute, so.
And those burned, it's, when you get too close to that convection heat, and that separation definitely helps, I would think would help with the fire department, but also, I know Windsong, once again, and I know they put non-combustibles pretty much on the sides when they use the concrete board, but I'm not sure that that's a stipulation for all, or is it, Ann?
I'll read from Architectural and Landscape Standards. It says buildings shall be constructed of traditional design with brick, stone, or fiber cement siding, shakes or shingles on the exterior. I'm going to skip over the part about where we're going to require house plans. Vinyl accessories and trim are allowed. No vinyl siding is permitted. So vinyl siding would not be permitted, only accessories and trim.
Gotcha, but you still have it on your vent soffit. And when you allow it on your vent soffit, if convection gets in your vent soffit and gets into the next roof line, the fire will spread. So maybe something we need to look at on sides.
Any thoughts? Go ahead.
Well, the other thing that seemed logical that Mr. Larkin said was, if somebody's just going to develop 10 acres, then why do you need a huge community center? You might say, well, there's still a lot of people in a 10-acre tract on R55, so it would be a lot nicer community center or clubhouse if you required that. So, any of y'all have any additional thoughts on that?
That was going to be my question. If you thought 2,000 was too big, if you wanted to.
I kind of like it because I think it encourages larger parcels to be involved in these things versus smaller parcels. We don't want a bunch of little, encourage them to find more, a bigger area and create a bigger community.
So keep that at 2,000, is that? And just, what you'll see tonight, you'll actually be voting on the ordinance that adopts the text change. So it'll still be the same language, but it will be in an ordinance format. Jason and I have worked to make sure we've had some text amendments that we didn't include in ordinance. So from now on, you'll be voting on the ordinance to adopt the text amendment. So.
One more question also, and I meant to ask it earlier, but so as far as like some of these additional requirements, for say Windsong to be able to do a quality product, the density, we went from 5 to 4. What is the average density on the ones that's out there now? Do we know?
We have 9 rezoning cases for 7 projects, and the only one that was over 4 right now was Hardy Springs, which is actually under the retirement community model. So they don't have individual lots per se. So
really, if we're going from, say, if it was it's proposed 5 back up to, it's proposed 4, but go back up to 5 if it's available. If we're asking them to do additional requirements, is it something to talk about or think about, not take away any of the density just in case? I know I've had to choke on some of my comments that I've had in the past, but more and more I've talked to people, and I'm man enough to admit when I am wrong on a few things. Don't tell my wife I said that. But so I don't think, as far as a lot of the topo challenges that we have in Paulden, 5 probably would never come in play, but on a small amount.
Especially for a detached, because only the detached is 4. The attached and the retirement community I still have listed as 5.
Right, so would it be easier just to have 5 and 5 and not try to calculate, because I don't know, what would you calculate as far as on the attached 5 an acre? Would you only say if they're taking up 2 acres of it, then that would be 10 units? You make things easier. And the rest of it, or would it just be easier to just say 5 across the board?
I don't think anybody that had a detached project was close to 5. I think they were more in the 3.5 range. I don't think you can put a maximum density, but I think when you put considerations like the increase in the lot size, increase in the buffers, those are going to naturally affect the density. So I think leaving it at 5 is fine, and I think changing it to 4 is probably fine. Just if you want to keep it across the board, I'll be happy to make that change to.
What do y'all think?
I like 4.
Okay. I was just asking.
What do you think?
Are you saying 4 for both, or 5 for attached and 4 for detached?
Because it makes sense naturally if something's attached, it can be more dense.
Right.
So.
Yeah, so. I think it would. I want to do some more homework. So anyway.
I'm good with the 5 for the detached. I'm sorry, the 4 for the detached and the 5 for the attached.
Okay.
Then I'll leave it the way it is for now. And 2, I mean, we made this text amendment, and I'll always say that any zoning district we have, they're living documents, they can be changed. I think I'd like to rip off and duplicate something that Cobb County does at the end of the year, because for a while there's been a typo in R55, which I crack up. It's about the vinyl siding. It said no, vinyl siding is not permitted. I think we were trying to say it's not permitted. We were really trying to say that's a typo. And that's the kind of thing that we can, at the end of the year, when we find these, I'll bet you several places have typos like that, we can do a consent agenda item and change those. And I think Jason helped me out. If it's a minor change to a density or something, that could be included on an annual cleanup.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. We may want to just be careful and properly advertise a cleanup thing for zoning purposes, but just know that the General Assembly every year has a cleanup bill that they do, because they themselves find a bunch of typos and things that need to be changed, or maybe things that are antiquated, need to be updated. They don't have a lot of substance, but they do make it read as everybody intended.
And one thing, Ann, we kind of skipped over here with other comments, was the sidewalk on each side. When you're talking about older people, if they were going to cross the street to get to the sidewalk, they might need a little extra time, so if you just had a sidewalk on both sides, I think it would be a plus.
So go ahead and make the change to retirement communities to include sidewalks. I know that would make Scott happy.
Y'all good with that? Or? Thank you, Ann.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you to everybody. I'm the one that asked for a table, and everybody has been working probably on a daily basis trying to figure this R55 out. So I just want to thank everybody for that.
Under new business, item number 6 is discuss action to approve change order number 8 in the amount of $69,825 to the GMP contract with Turner Construction Company for the Paulding County Adult Detention and Law Enforcement Project. Mr. Scott Green and Eric, if needed.
Thank you. Yeah, and also on the sidewalks, we want to make sure that seniors don't have to play in the street. So we give them a place to walk and go around their neighborhood and come back with their Lhasa or their Shih Tzu. Kids, if they have grandkids visiting, they've got a place to go without having to cross the street. 'Cause we do get a lot of calls about needing more crosswalks, kids playing in the street, slow children at play, that kind of thing with traffic calming. And if you only put sidewalk on one side, sometimes you're just inviting them to cross the street or get out of the front yard. So I appreciate if that change is made. I think that's important. It's important to the kids, important to the parents, I think, also. With that, don't really have anything to add on this change order. Eric covered it very well. Colonel Hunton's here about the need of any of these items. These are, again, a lot of the changes we made, sometimes we didn't have it on the drawing like we wanted, but we needed it, and so we had to pay for it. So if there are any other questions that you have besides what Eric presented, I'd be glad to answer. or ask Colonel Hunton or Mr. Johnson to come up. Appreciate your approval.
I guess we're good, Scott. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Item number 7, discuss action to approve the 2020 budget amendments. Ms. Pollard to report.
Good morning. This is probably one of the simpler budget amendments that I think I've ever put together. So revenues came in higher than anticipated. We had some increase in sales tax and title ad valorem tax, as we've talked about over the past few months. And we had COVID to deal with for the second half of the year. So it's changed things. We have incurred additional expenses in some areas, and in some areas we have come in under budget because maybe projects were on hold or we weren't able to have the people in here to be able to get some of those projects completed. So some things have been on hold. Overall, I'm going to talk about first off, I want to tell you that in your backup, and I did not realize this until Commissioner Caker called me yesterday and it brought my attention to look through the backup again, but I attached the original budget to your backup. So I didn't actually attach the amended, and you do all have a copy of it. I didn't catch it in time, and I've handed them out, and they're in the back of the room. But I'm going to talk about the major differences between the two for just a second. And because of that, I'm going to give you a little more detail than I probably normally would. The budget is approved by fund, and then at the fund level, the departments are under the fund level. So those are the two categories. I'm going to talk about fund first, and then I'm going to come back to the general fund and talk about some specific departments, because that's where a lot of interest is. So under the general fund, I had $3 million in other tax. So that was an improved revenue. And as you can see, we did not use any of fund balance. So fire tax remained very similar to prior year. They had an increase in the expenditures, but it was well within the operating revenues for the year. 911 remained very similar. Special courts, those are the constitutional officers. Those didn't change. Your special revenue for SPLOST, we had an increase. Obviously, sales tax increased, so you had a little more revenue. And debt service had a minor increase in its revenues as well. So, and then we had a little bit of change in the debt service cost. If you recall, we did a 2019 refunding, so that changed some of late in the year, so November, December of 2019. So that adjusted the cost a little bit from what was originally anticipated. Basically, that gets the fund level, and if you go back to the general fund, turn over to the back, this page was in your backup accurately, and it's got a department listing, so it's got your original budget and then your amended budget. Specifically, I'm going to mention some of the larger ones. Some of the small ones, they're just rounding, so it's just cleanup to change it for $50. That's annoying to deal with, so I've cleaned some of that up. Voter registration, basically, they had quite a struggle this year. I mean, you had more days for early voting. You had more mailing costs. Things have been definitely different for them. So they had an increased cost. The adult drug court, that was originally estimated, and then the grant documents came in after the budget was approved last year. Probate court had some additional staffing requests this year due to increased firearm permits, trying to deal with COVID, getting people in and out, direction. It caused them some additional cost. Juvenile court had some additional staffing, specifically if you recall, they had a law clerk that they came back and asked for. The marshal's office, one of the things that is kind of not able to help in smaller departments, if you have staffing that changes any during the year, the difference between employee-only health coverage and family health coverage can be substantial. I mean, it can be, and so if you have one or two of those, it causes a budget amendment, which is kind of the case here. It resulted in an increase that would make their budget go over. Recycling, recycling and landfill share some cost. And so some of the costs that recycling has incurred this year could be shared more by landfill. If we did that, the landfill doesn't have, the general fund's contributing to those costs as well, so it's either contribute to the landfill or contribute to the recycling for those costs. So they're actually here in recycling. Utility coordinator, those are costs for streetlights that are in subdivisions that the homeowners are billed for. So we pay the cost to the power, and then we turn around and bill the citizen on their water bill. We had an increase in, that cost was increased. However, there was an increase in the revenue as well, by more than the cost. And then you have the intergovernmental agreement that you had with the airport, and that required that the county pay for the legal fees. We constructed a wall, as well as we've cleaned up some land purchases. So that's the inclusion of that. And that gets pretty much the budget, a summarized version of the budget amendment. So they're fairly simple, not anything that I don't think you knew about.
Questions? Thank you, Ms. Pollard. That's the conclusion of our regular business. At this time, if any of the commissioners want to make an announcement or a comment, we're back to post-4 starting today.
Yeah, I'm just going to announce Paulden Meadows Festival, which would be coming up in a few weeks, is actually canceled this year due to COVID, so I made a decision about a week ago. So I just, for the citizens out there watching, if you was planning on going, wait till next year.
I just want to say thank you to my board members, especially Sandy, who just wanted to discuss something a little further, and I'm thankful to Brian and all the rest of them for just pitching in, this week on different correspondences between the two of us at a time, and trying to come up with solutions and working with Ann. And Ann, thank you for your hard work.
I'm just going to echo that with Ms. Lipman and her staff. They have worked extremely hard. We also have another zoning category or classification that they've been working on. So it wasn't just one, it was multiple.
Thanks to the staff. You guys really work hard, and you don't go unnoticed. We talk about you guys all the time. So thank you for everything that you do. And thanks, Ron, for almost falling out of your chair. That would have been hilarious.
I'm sure if I did fall out of my chair, you'd laugh, and Jason would have to rush around to make sure I was okay, because it's okay. Jason was laughing pretty hard too, so. Now, I will say two things. First of all, I've said it before, but it bears repeating. Looking through this budget amendments, we would be woefully lost without the efforts of Ms. Pollard, so thank you again for the work that you do. Also, since I won't be on the board long-term going forward, I will just use today's example as a reminder to the board members who will be on this board going forward that sometimes putting on the brakes and taking a step back to get something right is a good thing, and rushing to a decision could be a bad thing. So I'm grateful for the pumping of the brakes, and make sure that everybody's on the same page and get things thought through, and I'm pleased with that. So thank you guys for that.
Okay. We have no public participation on non-agenda items. We do have a requirement for executive session for real estate, and do we still have the pending and potential litigation is still alive, so I'll get a motion now that we go into executive session.
I'll make the motion that we go for those purposes.
We got a second by Commissioner Stover. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Stand adjourned. Call the work session back to order and report that no action was taken in executive session. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
How about, I make a motion
Yeah,
before we do that.
right.
Do we have to do that in here?
I have to make a motion to add to the agenda. So I'd like to make a motion that we add to the regular agenda the approval of a lease agreement with the court-appointed special advocates, CASA, of Paulding County, Inc., for the lease of 165 North Johnston Street.
I second.
A motion by Commissioner Davis, second by Commissioner Hart. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Adjourn. Mr. Stover, second by Commissioner Davis. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned.